U.S. Congressman, publisher of Long Island Business News, award-winning authors, physical fitness, life coach, and celebrities like Billy Crystal and Eddie Murphy. I had no idea so many awesome people got their start at Nassau Community College.
Well, they're always saying that NCC is where success stories begin. With people like that as graduates, it must be true.
Hello, I'm Dr. Linda Nadian.
And I'm Aurora Workman, the president of Nassau Community College Alumni Association.
Together, we're the hosts of Lion Tales, a show that highlights proud graduates of Nassau Community College. Join us each week when distinguished alumni stop by to share stories, laugh a little, and remind us what things were like when they were students at Nassau Community College.
My fabulous friend Linda and I will also share the latest alumni news and updates, so tune in Tuesdays at 4 p.m. to the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC, or listen online with the iHeartRadio app.
We're back here on From the Press Box on this Monday. I am Rob Leonard, and of course with me is my brother and award-winning sports writer Tim Leonard. Hello again, brother. How are you?
Hello again, brother.
Bill Madden was fantastic from the Daily News.
Outstanding.
As always. We love having him on. We hope to have him on again. But today is interview day, brother. We have a new book out. It is called Out of the Clouds: The Unlikely Horseman and Unwanted Colt Who Conquered the Sport of Kings. On the line with us is one of the co-authors, Linda Carroll, who co-wrote it with David Rosner. And Linda, welcome. We should say it's published by Hachette Book. Is that how you say Hachette? Is it Hachette? Hachette, okay. And welcome to the show, Linda. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm good, although kind of melting.
Yes, it is. It's a little warm.
A little warm today.
A little warm. Now, this book, this is kind of a... First of all, one of the reasons I took the book, Timmy and I are not, well, we'll be honest with you, we're not horse racing experts or aficionados, but a horse named Stymie, it was like, I'm a Little Rascals fan, and the horse is named Stymie. Now, is there a connection here?
That was enough to pull my brother in.
That pulled me right in. So, was it named after Stymie with the derby hat?
No connection. No connection with the Little Rascals. In fact, I don't know how they plucked the name Stymie out of the air, but maybe they were stymied because he wasn't very good about being trained. In the beginning he was kind of badly behaved.
Okay. Well,
whatever works.
Yeah, whatever works. Why did you write the book, or you co-write the book? Or how does the book start? Because this is a story most people don't know. It's an underdog story, so that's always fun to read. How did you come to write this book?
It came out of reporting for a previous book, which was about the Affirmed and Alydar rivalry. And as it turns out, the co-owner of Affirmed, her father was Hirsch Jacobs. And when we were researching her background, we found all this interesting information about Hirsch Jacobs, and we thought, well, we can't put it all in this book because it's not about Hirsch Jacobs. We're going to put it aside, and maybe we'll come back to it later. And then the opportunity arose for us to do it, and it's such an interesting story, both about Hirsch Jacobs and Stymie and all the people that surround them.
Okay, now the next question is, who's Hirsch Jacobs?
Tell us more about him and his background story.
Well, he's a typical New York kid in his era. He's a son of an immigrant tailor. He doesn't know anything about horses in the beginning. He does know a lot about pigeons because he got into pigeon racing, which was at the time a big urban pastime.
Okay.
And one of the people that he met through pigeon racing brought him to the racetrack. And at the racetrack, he just immediately was smitten. These big animals that seem to be a complete contradiction. They seem so powerful and yet so sensitive and timid. And he was just drawn to them. And the more time he spent there, the more he realized this is maybe how he could make a living.
So it's a New York story as well as a horse story and underdog story.
Very much a New York story.
Because one of the things I like reading is just reading stuff like that the people walked from the train station down to Belmont Park because of the war, And that would have to be Floral Park because I worked in Floral Park, and I know where the train station is, and I lived in Elmont for a little while, so I know the road you're talking about where they had to have walked. So just reading about that, or traveling on Queens Boulevard, or the fact that there was a racetrack in Jamaica at one time, which I've only seen on maps. I totally forgot there was a racetrack there. So it's nice to see all these little New York mentions, especially as we're New Yorkers. So
right. I think New York is almost as much a character in the book as Hearst Jacobs and Stymie and Damon Runyon and Isidore Bieber. The city itself inhabits the whole book.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Talk a little bit about one thing. Let me just go back first. Hearst Jacobs, incredibly to me, was kind of derided as a claiming trainer, and he won a lot of races, but he was able to do that because he had a sharp eye for a horse that might still have something or could improve on where he was. And obviously for anybody who doesn't know claiming, that's when they run a race and anybody can buy any horse in the race for a predetermined amount. And Hearst Jacobs pretty much made a career out of finding a horse that he could buy for a cheap price and then run in races and actually win those races. So obviously he made a decent amount of money and had a lot of success from that. But just talk about how, I don't know, where this eye for talent came from, first of all, and then I'll follow that up with something else that I want to go into.
Okay. So I think it's a sensitivity. I always say, that everyone who says horses don't talk, they don't listen, because horses are always communicating. And Hearst Jacobs had this sensitivity. One of his kids said to me one day that it's not just horses. Hirsch was loved by every animal you can imagine. He told me how his dog used to get all excited when Hirsch would walk in the door. And he just had this sensitivity for them, and they picked up on it. And he would be able to divine just by staring at them what their problem was. He picked up horses that weren't performing as well as he thought they should. And he would spend a certain amount of time like hanging out in the stall with them and staring at them and also watching them move and trying to figure out what is it that's holding this horse back. And miraculously, he seemed to do that with a regularity that made him a very wealthy man.
Right, but then because of the success that he had, and part of this was what I was reading in the book, is a lot of trainers started the whispers about, well, he must be drugging the horses or he's got to be cheating in some way, shape, or form, because here he is taking these horses that everybody else thought were just not capable of winning races, and now he's winning. Just talk about some of his training methods and what he did to turn the horses around. And I mean, there was one part of the book that I read where actually J. Edgar Hoover admitted that he investigated Hearst Jacobs because everybody in horse racing seemed to be trying to find out, all right, this guy must be cheating. How is he cheating? And J. Edgar Hoover told him, he says, look, he goes, we investigated you. You never knew it, but you're clean. So he had to be doing something right, but what was it?
Well, ultimately, it's that, a lot of trainers train horses like every horse is the same. They have one system for training everybody, and Hearst Jacobs treated them as individuals. He would see what worked for one horse didn't necessarily work for another one, and he would see that, maybe this horse needed a rest before he went back on the track, or maybe, one story I really liked was the story of this horse who Hearst Jacobs bought her and really liked her, but she hadn't won anything. And she was well-bred, but she hadn't won anything. And he just kept staring at her, and he figured out eventually that she had a problem with her feet and the way her shoes were. He called them tight shoes. And the shoes were making her uncomfortable. And so he changed up the way her shoes were done. And sure enough, the filly started winning everything. And it had to do with him being sensitive. He said, she looks like she's very uncomfortable when she walks. And that must mean there's something wrong with her feet. And there's nothing wrong with the hoof itself, but the way that the hoof was constructed, the shoes could pinch her feet and would make her feel uncomfortable. So we got a blacksmith out and put shoes on with a pad in between the shoe and the foot,
right,
to protect the foot and clinch the nails a little more loosely. And sure enough, the filly was happy, and happy horses run good races.
So it's like horse orthotics.
Yes. It's a question of recognizing, what it is that is making this particular horse uncomfortable or unhappy, and fixing the problem. And then, you make the horse happy and comfortable, and they'll work for you.
It makes sense to me. Huh?
Is it true that horse Stymie was almost bought before Hirsch Jacobs got to him? But
yeah,
World War II got in the way?
Well, it took twice actually. The first time was a guy who saw him and wanted to get into being a trainer, and he offered $500 to Stymie, and the trainer who had Stymie originally and hated him was happy to take the money and took a deposit. But when the man got home to get the rest of the money, he saw a draft notice. And he went back to the track and said, "I'm sorry, I can't do it. I really wanted to do this, but I'm going into the Army." But that wasn't the only time. After that failure, a family came back to look at all the horses in the barn, and one of them walked up to the trainer and said, "I want to buy," the little girl with the family said, "I want to buy a horse. Do you have a horse I could buy?" He said, "Sure. How much money have you got?" And she said, $200. And he said, "I got the horse for you." But he's entered in a claiming race, and I can't take him out of the claiming race. I don't think anybody's going to claim him. So probably you can have this horse. But as history tells us, Hirsch Jacobs claimed Stymie out of that race, so the little girl didn't get the horse for $200.
Oh, wow. It's
a great thing for racing history. Otherwise the horse would have wound up in some good little girl's backyard.
Right. He just would have been a pet.
We're talking with Linda Carroll. She is the co-author with David Rosner of Out of the Clouds, The Unlikely Horseman, and The Unwanted Colt, Who Conquered the Sport of Kings, published by Hachette. And she is with us for the next few minutes. Why was this story not really told? I mean, you think about older horses, you think of Seabiscuit or Whirlaway. Why is Stymie not in the same category as the rest of those horses?
We wondered the same question, and we don't really have an answer, although I think part of the issue was that no one had a connection with the family, and, nobody could talk to family members to find out the stuff that's not in newspaper reports.
Right.
And because we had done the story about Affirmed and Alydar, and we knew Patrice Wolfson, we were able to get in contact with the 3 adult children of Hirsch Jacobs, and they were able to give us those special details that you can't get anywhere else about what he was like.
And we should say Patrice is Hirsch Jacobs' daughter. So just to make sure.
Right.
Where does
Patrice Jacobs?
Where does Stymie fit in with the horses of his era? I don't want to say like 1 through 10, but compare his style of racing maybe to other horses of that era, because he won so much.
Right. Well, there were other horses that were winning. I mean, there was Assault and Armed at the same time, who were top race horses, but he had this special style of racing that really appealed to the crowd. The most modern day analog to him would be Zenyatta, horse that just drops way to the back, and then towards the end of the race, all of a sudden overtakes everybody and blasts to the front.
Okay.
And that's a lot more exciting than watching a horse that's leading from the beginning to the end. I mean, not to take away from great horses that can start out